Hi everyone, it's Plastic EP here from Melbourne, Australia. And believe it or not, we're in lockdown and a curfew, but let me tell you, it's great being on the internet. And I want to introduce Mr. Shampoo, who you know, but I've got a very, very special guest. I've got Tom Jennings coming in from Hertfordshire. That's on the outskirts of London. Now, Tom's claim to fame is he owns the Paul McCartney Wings 1972 tour bus. That's right. The actual bus that Paul McCartney used all around Europe to tour with. So as I said, everyone out there, you're all feeling groovy. So let's kick off the show.
All right.
Yeah, that's right. There's always tomorrow, but let me tell you, there's always today. And just to tell you, here in Melbourne, it's 12:24 a.m. In London, it's about 3:24 in the afternoon. And look at that. Let's get into it now. Tom, what is that? That's a Paul McCartney. Go for it.
That's a picture of Paul in front of the bus. That was taken on the day he met the bus. Down in the south of France, I think outside the Eden Rock Hotel in Antibes. One of the most expensive hotels in the world, the boys were telling me. But they did a whole photo session there.
That is unbelievable. Let's start now. Here's his, this is the promo of the actually 1972 tour. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
That's actually a pictorial representation of the tour. 25 concerts, 25 cities, 9 countries across Europe over 6-7 weeks, July, August 1972. And the bus on that tour, everyone tried to dissuade Paul from using an open top seaside special 20-year-old double-decker bus. And he said, if we're going to tour Europe in the heat of the summer, he said, I want an open top bus. He said, I'm not going to swelter inside a metal box. So they put bean bags and mattresses and all the stuff, laid it all out on the top floor. And they just laid around in the sunshine, playing guitars, bonding. These were the guys that were taking the place of John, George, and Ringo in Paul's musical life. So this was his first tour after the breakup of the Beatles. And it was hotly followed by the world's press. They were absolutely under siege with all the press that were following them. And so the bus racked up over 12,000 kilometers, 7,500 miles, and many, many adventures on the road, many adventures.
Unbelievable. Now, I've got to tell you, it started, we're going to go through some photos so you can say whatever you like with it there, Tom. But it started off as a green bus, did it? With actually a closed top. Is that correct?
That's right. Back in 1953, it started life in Chelmsford in Essex, which is a county in England, not far from Hertfordshire, where I am now. And it was originally a closed topper with a sunken gangway. It was called a low bridge because it was lower than normal buses, so they could get under low bridges. And then in 1965, so it did that for about 12 years. And then in 1965, it was converted to an open topper. They took the best of the fleet and they converted them to open toppers for duty service along the seafront. And so it went to a place called Clacton, and it was there for years, going up and down the seafront, bringing joy to holidaymakers and all the sightseers. And then in 1968, it then moved counties off to Suffolk, and it was up in Great Yarmouth again doing seafront duty until it was put out of service in 1971. And then it was made ready for the tour, its destiny to meet the biggest rock star in the world, Paul McCartney, and tour with him. And the bus carried Paul McCartney, Linda McCartney, Heather, Mary, and Stella McCartney as a 10-month-old baby. Denny Lane, Denny Sywell, Henry McCulloch, wives and girlfriends, and carried them across Europe with all of the trucks. And it said, this bus is never good. All the guys, the management and the roadies and everybody, they all said, the bus will never keep up with all these new Mercedes that we've got. It's a 20-year-old seaside special bus. Paul said, I don't care. He said, I want to do this tour. I don't want to swelter in the heat, and we're going to have some fun, and we're going to do some bonding with the new guys. So James Paul McCartney was actually on a bond mission to bond with the new guys who had taken the place of John, George, and Ringo in his musical life. And, you know, literally it was a pivotal tour. And Paul had already done a very low-key tour where they just rocked up at universities. But this was the first major structured tour that Paul McCartney did after the breakup of the biggest band in the world of all time, the Beatles.
Now, Tom, I'm going to ask you, we're going to go and have a look at some of the repairs now you've done on the bus. But before we do,
okay,
he wrote a few songs on the bus, didn't he? Can you tell me what songs he actually created on the bus, if you know?
Well, I can only say it's legend. It's not, you know, but if you look at Paul's output in '73, which was literally a few months after the tour, and remember he was on the bus for nearly 2 months, and you know, chilling out and all the rest of it. But if you look at his output, it was just prolific, including Band on the Run and Live and Let Die. So it's said there are people in the communities that say that he must have written them on the bus. But obviously I can't confirm, you know, either way. So it just adds to the legend. You know what?
It goes with the bus, and only Paul would know and who was on the bus. So let's go now through these repairs. Tell me when these repairs started and where the bus started to be repaired. Take us through all these photos, Tom.
Okay, well that's a photo from where she is now. The side, the mud guards are off. Because the mud guards are not in good condition at all. There's one of them. That's the near side one, or the passenger side one. That might be repairable, but the one on the driver's side is completely shot. Really, it just disintegrated when the boys unbolted it. So we're getting new ones made. But what we're doing is we're recycling the metal, and we're going to make tribute products with the metal that comes off. So the side panels, all those side panels, if we don't reuse them, they will be recycled into tribute products.
What a great idea. Now keep going through this. What is this, a step or something, or just the side? What's
okay,
that?
This is the driver's door. Just under the driver's door. The metal is all good because the metal is aluminium. But the problem is you have an aluminium subframe, but in the aluminium subframe, you've got timber, you've got wood, hardwood, ash usually. And what's happened is that the ash has rotted out. So all the panels got to come off, you know, get back to the basics. There's the driver's side mudguard. As you can see, the whole center of it has completely collapsed. You know, so that's basically going to be just recycled into products. This is the driver's side. All the panels are off. And that's just before she was refurbished. So all the timber above the windows is all good because the rain drains down through the bodywork, you know, over time, of course. I mean, this is 1953, and it may have been done again in the 90s, but I don't think so. I think this is original 1953. So again, it's the wood that's rotten. The aluminium is absolutely fine. Once you get the wood basically turns to tissue, and then just, you know, they just scrape it out, and then, you know, we have a joinery shop actually on site, and they are making all of the custom pieces of wood that are needed to go wherever they need to go.
Unbelievable. Now, since we spoke last time, I'm just saying, it's been a while, and I can see that it's meticulous work. Takes a lot of time. You're doing it the right way. And I've got to say to you, to restore the bus, when you look at it, how it stands historically, this is very, very huge. It's a big, huge event once the bus is finished. You've got to agree with that.
Absolutely. That's why we're doing it. I mean, the bus represents 68 years of transport of the people motoring heritage, and coming up to 50 years, the 50th anniversary of its association with the biggest rock star in the world, Paul McCartney, and the most successful musician of all time, Paul McCartney. So that was on one of his most important and pivotal tours. And so it's been called Macca's mothership, because that's where they did all the bonding and getting it ready. The artwork was inspired. The psychedelic artwork was inspired by the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour and Yellow Submarine. So we have this thing, 2022 is a very, very important year for the bus. And that's what we're aiming for. Paul McCartney's birthday is on the 80th birthday is on the 18th of June, 2022. And the bus has been booked to star at the Classic Motor Show at the enormous NEC, the National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham, right in the centre of the UK. So that's going to be huge. And also it's then booked to go on loan for a year to the very beautiful Transport Museum in Wythall. But there are many museums that are after the bus. They want it to go on loan, and we'll sell a few tickets. That'll be
excellent.
fun.
Mr. Shampoo, any questions?
Well, welcome to the show, Tom. It's great to see you. And I had heard that, this bus was converted. They put airplane seats in it. They took all the seats out, some on the top, and put mattresses and beanbag chairs, even a crib for the baby. And Stella had bunk beds. And this particular bus only went 38 miles per hour. That was the fastest it could go. And I saw the picture where it was found in the middle of this field of nowhere. And, it's this incredible survivor, Tom,
It's survived. It's like a cat, it's got all these lives, but somehow it just keeps landing on its feet. It's missed the scrapyard a couple of times. And there's a lovely story about Roger White. And the bus in the 80s, the bus had finished its service with a company called Tricentral, and they were just selling off a load of the buses, and any of them that didn't sell were going to go to the scrapyard. And it was in the final countdown, literally the final countdown, when Roger White, he saw the unusual destination on the destination blind, Oslo or whatever. And he said, what's going on with the Oslo on the destination? Well, why doesn't it say Essex or Hatfield or somewhere? And they said, oh, that's the destination blind from when it did the tour with Paul McCartney and Wings. And he went, what? So he bought it, rescued it, and in it went. And before long, it was doing TV work, and it also did the BAFTA tribute to Julie Andrews at the beautiful Empire Leicester Square. And it's the only bus ever allowed into central London as celebrity transportation for a BAFTA tribute. And if you look up the BAFTA tribute on YouTube, you'll actually see it, but you won't see the bus, but you will see the actual tribute to Julie Andrews. So it's got 2 stars in its life. And also Cilla Black. Cilla Black had it on her primetime Sunday night show twice, featured doing stuff, where they used to, reunite people and all that. So it's no stranger to famous people. It's lovely. And we've got some, famous things lined up for the bus as well, which I'm sure Plasty would like to introduce at some point.
Now, also want to say, what amazes me the most, Tom? Okay, now, let's say someone buys Paul McCartney's guitar. I'm just saying as a collector. Okay, it's a guitar. Now, apart from buying one of Paul's houses, you couldn't get a collectible more bigger than the bus. That's how huge it is. To own a bus that was the 1970 tour, Paul McCartney and Wings bus, that has got to be one of the biggest and the greatest, 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% Paul McCartney collectibles you could ever own in your life. Like, this is like huge. I can only imagine. And in Paul's mind, you got to understand, they traveled on buses like this. And George's dad was a bus driver. So, I mean, it's all relevant, isn't it? They love those buses. And apparently George and Paul were on the top story of a bus and they played guitar, going to school, and all these stories with the buses. So, I mean, it's just like, to me, it's like you own one of the world's greatest Paul McCartney collectibles and one of the biggest, apart from one of his houses. Would you agree with that?
Well, Steve Bradley, the great Beatles authority, has called it the world's biggest Beatles-related collectible.
Yeah. There you go. I don't need someone to tell me. I can see it. But when I'm looking at the bus and I'm looking at the fantastic artwork, and I've seen photos of them sitting on the top of the bus with the guitars and driving through places in Europe, I mean, you got to talk. That's a glorious time. They're riding, they're making magic with the music, they're driving with their bus, and everyone in Europe is seeing them no matter where they go. It's like, it's like the Magical Mystery Tour, except it's Paul McCartney's new band and Paul McCartney's new musical experience to the world. It's just, to me, it's like mind-boggling. You'd agree with that, Mr. Shampoo?
Well, Plastic, Tom, I had seen one of your interviews, and I just wanted to say that you quoted that, you know, Paul really wanted to have the people see this bus coming, and it represented love, music, and let's have a good time. And, you know, this is when Paul brought his family on the road. I mean, they were up on the upper deck, and you see Danny Lane playing a guitar, and his hair's just blowing in the wind, and the kids were just, you know, it definitely was Paul spreading his love for the people. And that's what you said on that interview, Tom, and I thought that was just great.
But I love the notion of what the artwork. I spoke to Jeffrey Cleghorn, who was the artist who painted the artwork for Paul McCartney, and what came out of that conversation with him. We had a big long conversation, lovely man, and what came out of that was the invitation that's in the artwork that says, we come in peace, we come to play, we come to have a good time. We come together, Beatles reference, join us. And the plan was to make people smile when they would see the bus. And it achieved that very, very much so in spades.
Well, you know, Tom, I wanted to tell you, I live over here in Canada, and there's a very fellow name of Jim Patterson that bought John Lennon's Bentley Rolls Royce and refurbished it all. So you're going to go on that list of people that refurbish Beatles vehicles, all right? So I'm going to give you that title today because that's what Jim Patterson did. He saved that psychedelic Rolls Royce, and you're doing it with the bus. So congrats, and thank you for doing that, you know, Tom, because that means a lot to me because I love the Beatles, and so does Plastic, don't you, Plastic?
Exactly, but the other thing I want to say is, I don't know anything about copyright. You got to understand that. If you end up doing little models or little metal buses based on that bus, I mean, what a momentum that is. You know what I mean? Like, they got Beetle buses and Beetle transport things now for sale on the net. You can buy the Magical Mystery Tour bus. You can buy a taxi. There's different things that are marketed. But can you imagine Paul McCartney's 1972 Wings bus, and you've got it as a memento in steel, painted with the colors? I mean, how great would that be?
Tribute products, yeah, most definitely. We're going to be making those available. I've done a 3D bus and a principal model, and that's going to be, you know, we're working on that right now. But at the moment, the guys, I'm very much taken up with supporting the guys who are actually doing the hands-on of the restoration, and we're racing around, you know, getting all kinds of stuff. And as you can imagine, it's hard to get parts, but we're getting there. And the bus community has just been fantastic. They love the bus. It's a Bristol KSW 1953. With a Gardner engine, the finest engine in the world, you know, and after almost 20 years of doing nothing, she fired up a couple of tweaks, a few bits and bobs, and up she went, and she's going. I mean, she was in Tenerife in the Canary Islands for 24 years, and for 4 or 5 of those years, she was actually doing what she was meant to go down there for, which was to be a tourist attraction outside a rock cafe. And then the guy who owned the rock cafe, who bought the bus to put the bus outside the front of his cafe, he was a property developer, and he developed the land at the back of the rock cafe to build a hotel. And unfortunately, the bus was on the land that became the new roadway into the hotel. So there was nowhere else for the bus to go. But he couldn't bear to part with it. So he put it out the back of his house into that private compound. And slowly, over 20 years, over 17, 18 years, the stuff just built up around it, and it slowly got buried. But and it took them, I mean, he passed away in 2015, and it still wasn't moved until 2017, for it to come back to the UK. And I found it in October 2019. I went looking for I wasn't looking for a bus when I went online. I was actually looking to buy a vintage guitar. And
unbelievable.
and
Let me tell you,
a vintage
Tom,
bus.
Charles Rosenay's just written in. Charles Rosenay's in Connecticut. He's one of our greatest supporters of our shows, right? Now, he does tours to Liverpool. He does a lot of things, right? Beatle Confests and conventions and things like that. And he's written here, the bus made people smile. And so did this interview. And I'm just suggesting, is there any plans later, you think, about getting the Wings bus and taking it to Liverpool during Beatle Week or something like that? Could that be a possibility?
That's absolutely right. And I would be delighted to, hook up with that gentleman and
Charles,
Charles, and have a chat with him and, see what we could do. The bus is up in the north of Essex, so it's not a million miles away. It's a very good position for it in the middle of the country, so that it can travel around, to get to anywhere in the UK really easily. There are museums in Wales that want the bus. Museum in Scotland wants the bus. There's another one on the south coast. Another one in Essex. So there's lots of calls on the bus. But of course, it was at the Beatle Week festival in Liverpool back in the 90s, and of course it would be wonderful to do that again. I've been to the Matthew Street Festival, as it used to be, but now it's called the Liverpool Festival. I've been there a few times. My great friend, who sadly passed away, Paul Tennant. Paul was in, I used to call him Beatle Paul, because he went to school with George Harrison, and he was in a band called Focal Point, who were the first band signed by the Beatles to the Apple label. And actually, it was Paul McCartney who got him the deal. And Paul wrote a book called All You Need Is Luck, which is the story of how they came to get this deal. And Paul McCartney endorsed it. So you can get a copy of, there's a plug for Paul's book. You can get a copy for £1 on Amazon, and it's a really great read of the fun that they had. I was at Abbey Road last week for the open day, and I was telling the guys there a story about Paul. They used to be in 94 Baker Street, which is where the Apple boutique was. The Beatles owned the Apple boutique, and they had the whole building. And so they had the boutique on the ground floor, and then above it were all the rooms where all the bands that were signed to Apple would be working, like a Tin Pan Alley. So there's all different rooms. So they were in one room one day, and they were writing a song. And John Lennon walked in, and he said, what you doing, lads? And they said, we're writing a song, but we're stuck. So he said, oh, okay. So he came in, sat down, and said, right, play it to me. And he finished the song with them. Now, what a thrill to have John Lennon just walk into the room and finish your song with you. And there was another day when, it's a really great book, you should buy it. All You Need Is Luck. I'm going to plug it again. And there's another day when they said, right, they needed an acoustic guitar. So they said, oh, there's one in the cage at Abbey Road. It's Paul's. So they said, oh, well, he plays it up. So it's a left-hander, but you can restring it. Okay. And he never uses it. So that's fine. So they took the guitar, and they brought it to Baker Street, and they're using it. Next thing, the call came that Paul had arrived unexpectedly into Abbey Road, asking for his acoustic guitar. So big dash, and they were actually they were restringing it back to Paul's left-handed in the taxi on the way around from Baker Street back to Abbey Road. And literally there was a hand waiting to take the guitar off them as they pulled up in the taxi and get in. So my friend Paul, he's one of my drivers to my heart as to who would have loved to be on this bus with us today. So we're thinking about Paul Tennant, wonderful man.
It's amazing. I know the bus now is right-handed. It's a right-hand drive like here in Australia. Because you got to understand, everything with the UK is the same in Australia. But in America, it's left-handed. And all I'm saying is, can you imagine if it was feasible for the bus to actually go to the US, some big convention or something like that, and actually take the bus from the UK to the US for all the Beatle fans in America? I mean, who knows? It's open-ended, isn't it?
Well, what we would do is we would put the bus, because the artwork, by the time the artwork has been painstakingly recreated and all the bodywork redone and everything, the only way that would be feasible for us to take the bus around would be to put it onto a low loader trailer, so that it's protected from any damage or whatever, and it's just safely transported so it doesn't break down. And then it'll just be transported wherever it needs to be. So and then it can just tootle around the yard, or the exhibition centre to drive it. It could go anywhere then, and that's fine. So that's how we're talking about.
Why risk it on the road? You don't have to. They'll drive past and see it on the loader. That makes a lot of sense. This bus, I'm just saying, you got to understand, one of my favourite shows from the UK is on the buses. I just love that show. And these buses are the same type of buses from the show.
We've got a theory that Paul saw on the buses, and because it was really big news at that time, on the buses was hugely popular in 1972. And I think that that's one of the reasons that Paul was attracted to the bus.
Well, we're big fans of the show. And let me tell you, Paddy just said, I'd love to see the bus come to the US. Well, as I said, these are food for thought down the track. But also, the amazing thing with video is you can have a Beatle convention happening anywhere in the US. The bus can be filmed, right? And then it can be shown at the convention, or it can come in on Zoom or Skype or whatever, even if the bus is in the UK. So with technology, there isn't really anything you can't do now with the bus. Doesn't even have to leave the UK. They just beam straight in from a convention and you give them the tour of the bus.
That's it. Well, we have a plan for 2022 that with the British Racing Drivers Club, that we might be doing a lap of Silverstone Formula One track. So watch out for that. I can't give any more details right now because nothing's been signed, nothing's been set in stone, but certainly the idea has gone forward, and there's going to be a lot of fun to be had with all of that. We've got quite a few ideas.
Now, here's an idea for you, right, Tom, because I follow a few things, okay? I know you're doing this project for the love of the bus and the heritage of the bus and saving the bus. That's what your motive is. Otherwise, you wouldn't have bought the bus. But can you imagine? You contact Antique Roadshow and they're at some castle and no one knows. And you rock up driving the bus to the castle as an antique and they can critique it and give you a value. That would make an amazing show. You agree with that, don't you?
A good idea. I like that.
Now, Tom, I'd heard that this bus was converted to an open top.
Yes.
It was just a regular bus, and it got converted to that open top. Is that true?
Right. Yes. It started life in 1953 as a closed topper low bridge. Which meant that the bus was able to actually get under low bridges. It was lower than as Yogi Bear would say, lower than your average bus. And then and then they did that. It did that for 12 years around Chelmsford in Essex. And then in 1965, it was decommissioned, and they chose the best of the fleet to be converted to open top to go up on the seafront in a seaside town called Clacton-on-Sea. And so it was there for a bunch of years, doing seafront service with all the lovely holidaymakers and the tourists and everybody just sitting in the sunshine with the beautiful sea view. And it's possible because there's an emotional tie here for me, because when we were kids, Mum and Dad used to bring us to Clacton. And it's possible as a teenager, I might have ridden on the bus. So that's a tantalizing thought, because when I was 14, we were definitely in Clacton, and the bus was in Clacton from 15, 16, and we were definitely in Clacton in those years. And we rode on the buses that were going up and down the seafront. So it's more than possible that I actually rode on it when I was a teenager.
Now, those are amazing stories. And I just got to say, Tom, no one's going to put a date on when you think you're going to finish the bus. But I'm just saying, do you think hopefully it may be finished before Paul's birthday? Is that really your sort of aim?
Most definitely. We're hoping that it might even be ready for Christmas. But that's going to obviously depend on the workshop. We've got the guys. We've kind of got all the plans in place for when the bodywork is going to be ready. It's going to spend a little bit of time in its base coat, which is going to be sky blue, before it has the artwork applied, because we were in discussions. As soon as I bought the bus, I contacted the original artist, Geoffrey Cleghorn. And I said, Geoffrey, would you consider restoring the artwork on your artwork on Paul McCartney's bus? And he said, oh, no, he said, I'm too old to be climbing those ladders, he said, to do the paintwork. So I said, oh, he said, I'm really sorry. He said, such a lovely idea, though. So while we were talking, we had a lovely long conversation. And he mentioned that he was a student at Ipswich Art College in the UK, in Suffolk. So one day I had a brainwave and I rang Ipswich Art College and I said, do you know that you have a very big connection to the biggest rock star in the world, Paul McCartney? And they went, oh, tell us more. So when I told them the story of Geoffrey and how he had come through Ipswich Art College and then ended up painting Paul McCartney's Legend of Rock and Road, the world famous 1972 Wings Tour Bus, they went, oh, wow. Oh, you must speak to Richard, our head of business development. So I was on the phone to Richard for an hour and a half. We had such a great conversation. He loved the bus, loved the story. So he said, Tom, the answer is yes. What's the question? So I said, well, the question is, do you think that you could bring a bunch of art students who could climb ladders and do all the stuff that Geoffrey can't, and reproduce, and we bring the bus up here? It will make a great story. Do you have an open area where the bus could be roped off so that all the maybe 10 students could do it? And maybe a big hangar of a shed where you could store the bus. He said, we've got all that, absolutely. Yes. How many students do you want? I said, well, your most talented students, 10, let's say 10 of them. So he said, okay. Yeah. So he said, we'll talk to the head of the art department. So the next thing, we're on the phone to the head of the art department. And he went, yeah, absolutely love it. And, we've got 5,000 students here at the Suffolk campus, which is Ipswich Art College. So I said, okay. He said, let me know when you want to bring the bus. So I said, okay, I'll get back to you. Hang on a minute. I'll be back shortly. So I rang Geoffrey and I said, Geoffrey, it's Tom. And he said, yeah, he said, I know the voice already. So I said, okay, Geoffrey, would you consider mentoring and guiding the new crop of Ipswich Art College students as they paint the bus under your guidance and mentorship? I said, would you do it? He said, I would. He said, if only to make sure they do it right. So I said, oh, brilliant. Okay, lovely. So I got back to the guys at Ipswich and I said, Geoffrey Cleghorn has just agreed to mentor and guide your students So I said, do you think we'll get a few students? It went, oh, wow. Oh, how wonderful. Okay, absolutely. The answer is yes. Let us know when you want to bring the bus. So I said, okay, that's great. And I said, but hang on, there's more. So he said, how do you mean there's more? I said, well, has Ipswich Suffolk campus got a music department? He said, yeah. I said, has it got an orchestra? He said, yeah. And soloist? Yeah. So I said, okay, picture this. The bus has been there for a week, right? It's had 10 art students jumping all over it, applying the colors, and the colors have come to life. We've got 5,000 students milling around with their cameras and their Instagrams and their Facebook and Twitter and all that. And the bus has become like famous. So the bus is finished. The bus is done. It's been painted. It's back to McCartney beautiful. Okay. Yes. I said, right. What about a gala concert before it leaves to go on its travels? What about a gala concert celebrating the life and the times of Molly can tie that, the life and the times of the music and life of Paul McCartney? Beatles era music.
They'd be playing on top of the bus.
They'd be playing in front of, in the presence of the bus. They might be playing on it. We'll see how we go.
You know what I'm saying? They could play on top of the bus because the Beatles did a rooftop concert. So they could have some of the students on top of the actual open bus stop doing the concert too.
One of the things that we're doing is, if you think of an open top bus, the top deck of an open top bus is like a bathtub. Right, so if you cut it down the side, we're making one of the sides drop down, and then it'll make the whole top deck of the bus turn it into a stage, and I'm calling it the McCartney stage. So you heard it here first. It's going to be called the McCartney stage, and I've been on to Glastonbury, and it's rumored that Paul McCartney is going to be doing Glastonbury in his 80th year, which is our 50th year, anniversary year. So his 80th birthday is 18th of June, 2022. It's rumored that he's going to be doing Glastonbury, but it's only a rumor, so it's not confirmed.
It's only a rumor, and he may be on top of that bus playing, but it's only a rumor.
But we don't know, so we don't know anything. But Glastonbury are definitely interested in the McCartney stage.
Fingers crossed, but let me tell you this, Tom. Once the bus is finished, right, and there's no rush because you have to be completely satisfied with the bus.
Completely.
What I'd like to do then is cross over live with Mr. Shampoo once the bus is finished and give us a personal tour of the bus being finished. That's something we can talk about in the future. Sure. But let me tell you, as I said, this is one of the biggest things for, let's say now, for example, we've got the Let It Be documentary coming back, Get Back in November, right? Going on the Disney Channel, right? With the Beatles rooftop, with this and that. And I can see now 2022 is the big year of the Paul McCartney and Wings 1970 tour bus being revived to the world. I mean, how proud can you be when that happens, when the bus is finally restored? Oh, it blows my mind.
Well, what's lovely is that a great idea gives birth to other ideas. Other ideas spin off it. Other ideas come, and the more I talk to people. I mean, I have a mechanic engineering background, as well as marketing and music. So this, I grew up when I was a kid. My Saturday job was working in a motorcycle repair shop. And I used to clean the spanners and sort out the tools, all the rest of it. And all the guys and the mechanics, when they'd finished doing the bikes, they would bring me for a ride. I'd be on the back, and they said, "Come on, let's have a rip up the road on the bike." And because we've got to check it out and steer. So I just loved it. So from then, that was, I love cars, I love trucks, I love buses, and so this combines all of those loves for me. I was 11 when in 1962, when the Beatles exploded, and I was already singing and playing, and to Elvis and to Johnny Cash and all the country stuff, and then when the Beatles exploded, boy was I ready, and we just devoured all the songs as they came. We learned them, we played them, And, we did gigs and all that kind of stuff. So the Beatles have just, and I was like everybody else, we had them in our lives every single day for the 8 years until 1970, when it was announced that they were breaking up. But of course, I followed John, Paul, George and Ringo really closely to see what are they going to do next, as did everybody else that I knew. And the whole world seemed to be, debating what are they going to do next. John went off and had his adventures with Yoko, and Paul got himself an open top double-decker bus and did an amazing tour of Europe. And everybody's sitting on the top deck playing guitars on mattresses and beanbags, and Stella McCartney was in the playpen on the top deck. And so, I mean, how amazing is that?
Tom, I wanted to ask you this question because I know nobody has asked you this question. I saw your interview. I want to know what vintage guitar that you were going to go and buy, because you never said what that guitar was.
Well, when I was a kid, I grew up on country music, as most Irish kids did, both American and Irish country music. And there was an American country singer by the name of Hank Locklin, and he was a big friend of Jim Reeves. So everybody's heard of Jim Reeves, not everybody's heard of Hank Locklin. And before my voice broke, Hank was a tenor, beautiful, the most pure voice you've ever heard. And when I was growing up, before my voice broke, I could emulate Hank. I could do a good job of a Hank song. And so I loved him from then on. And I saw him a few times in concert when he used to come over from the States. And I had all his albums. And on the album was this Gibson acoustic guitar. And I just loved this guitar. And I knew all the pictures, and I knew all the details of all the pictures. I used to study the album covers, and whilst I was learning the songs. And when I got the car when I retired as a treat to myself, and once the novelty had settled in, it didn't wear off, but it settled in. I thought, right, I fancy a vintage guitar now. So, and I was looking at all these heritage websites, and all of a sudden I saw Hank Locklin's guitar, and I knew it. It was like a friend. It was like discovering a friend that I was so familiar with. And I went chasing it, and you have to sign up, to get from one site to another to get the information. You've got to sign up and leave your email address and all the rest of it. And I chased it all the way through, maybe about 3 or 4 websites, to a guitar shop in Nashville. And by the time I got there, the guy said, "Oh no," he said, "it's sold." And I went, "Oh dear, I really want this guitar. Would you ask the guy if he wants to sell it and make a profit?" And he said, No, he's been waiting years for it himself. So I said, okay, there you go. So that was that. And because I had registered with all these other sites, I started to get other stuff coming through. And one of the things that came through was Elvis Presley's tour bus, an old Greyhound bus from the 70s that Elvis had converted to a tour bus. And I went, oh, wow. Oh, that's interesting. So I followed that. And that went all the way through to Julian's Auctions in LA. And that had sold for like $265,000. And I went, oh, wow. Okay, how cool is that? I would have loved to have maybe had a hand in that. That would be really cool. So because I followed that, next thing, I got the McCartney bus. The McCartney bus came through. And I looked at it and I went, oh, another tour bus. Blimey, Paul McCartney. Oh, I remember this bus. The one with all the psychedelic artwork, the open topper, the one with all the mattresses and the beanbags and the playpen. And so I followed that through, and I found that it was coming up for auction. So I thought, oh, I must keep an eye on that, because, Elvis's went for $265,000. This one looks to be in poor condition, but I'm a car guy. I'm a motors man. So nothing is impossible. So let's see. I'd be interested to know what it goes for. So off we went. A couple of weeks later, I thought of it again. Oh, I must have a look and see. I'm sure that auction's been for the bus. Not one bid. Not one bid. So I thought, there's something wrong here. And then I read the description. Now, back in the day when I used to buy do up and sell motors. I used to do adverts to sell a car. So I know how to do adverts for a car. And I read the description that they put in this, and I got outraged. I was offended on behalf of the bus because I thought, oh, it's missed out so much information. This iconic 1953, this iconic piece of this rocket and rolling museum on wheels, this Woodstock on wheels, this belonging to the biggest rock star in the world, it's transport of the people heritage, 67 years. And I started piecing it together. And for some mad reason, I sat down at my laptop and I typed out what should be said about this bus. And it was enormous. It was really, really long. And by the time I'd finished it, I read it to myself and I thought, blimey, this is something, this is quite something, this. And without realizing it, what I'd done is I'd actually sold the bus to myself. And so I started negotiating with the owner, Justin, and we eventually struck a deal. We struck the deal that he wanted, not the deal that I wanted, being a motors man, a buyer and seller of motors. But it was take it or leave it. And I thought, well, for richer or for poorer, but probably for poorer, I'm going to take it because I'm going to get such a lot of fun. Going to get such a lot. We're going to have a lot of fun with this. And I thought I owe it to this bus and the joy that it gave me back in the day. Because back in the day, when I saw this tour happening, I'm thinking to myself, I can play guitar, I can sing, I could drive the bus. Wow, I could be on that tour, right? In my fantasy 21-year-old head, I'm fantasizing about joining Paul and the boys on the bus and having the crack. And I thought to myself, oh, wow, there you go. So a big emotional attachment. And
I want to say this is one of the greatest interviews, and it's coming across what it is. It's just like, as I said, the 1972 Paul McCartney and Wings tour bus that went around Europe. There's no more to say on that. It's that great. But also got to say, in the UK, you've had so much publicity through here in Australia. For example, we got something called the RACV Club. That's the road. You know, your car breaks down, you pay a fee, they come and see. They did a very big article on your bus, and I think that went to 3 million people, was it?
Wow. The Federation of British Historic Vehicle Clubs, the FBHVC, they've got a membership of 250,000 in the UK, but they've got 1 million worldwide. And here is their Christmas edition of their magazine, if I can get that lined up with the camera properly. And it also features a 6-page spread.
Now, just going to ask you, Tom, explain to me, what's the WNO 481? Is that the number plate or is that the model of the bus?
That's the number plate.
Okay, I wasn't sure being in Australia. I had a guess on that and I got it right.
That's it.
Tom, I wanted to say something to you, Tom, that...
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you realize it, but you are keeping this part of Paul McCartney's dream. It's on the bus. Paul wanted this to go well. And it's the only time that he ever used that logo, because he doesn't use it anymore. Being on that bus is going to preserve that dream that Paul wanted. So, you know, the world loves you for that, Tom. I mean, you know, this is what Paul should have really done, because, you know, it's a great brand, don't you think? It's going to be on your bus. It's on your bus.
I love that.
You know, it's still being historically shown by you because that's right on the bus.
That's lovely. I love that. I haven't seen that before.
It is.
That's the first time I've seen that.
And Paul, you know, he developed Abbey Road, the cover, and you know, he saw the Beatles. And I think your theory about the bus, Paul was on Magic of Mystery Tour. They had a bus that was faster, but he didn't want that. He wanted on the bus's bus. So I believe your theory is correct.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Yeah, Tom, I just got to say, before we wrap it up, I want you to tell everybody your website, where they can find you, everywhere on the net now. Tell them because I want them to keep an eye on the progress of the bus, the success the bus is going to have now worldwide, what up-and-coming things are going to be planned for the bus, because I know you've got so many things ahead of you that no one knows. But fill everybody in on where they can contact you or where they can keep up with the bus's progress.
Okay, there are two places. Paul McCartney calls it the 1972 Wings Tour Bus. So we've got 1972wingstourbus.com and also facebook.com/1972 Wings Tour Bus. So it all goes back to 1972 Wings Tour Bus. But you can also Google the registration number, WNO 481, and you can, and everything will come up. You'll see all of our work. Also there's if you go on Flickr, the photo sharing website, and you'll actually see all of the albums that are on there for different periods of the bus's life, the bus lives, as I call them. And this bus has had more lives than a cat, and it's amazing what a survivor. What a survivor. The plucky bus that refused to die. 24 years, 19 years under the blazing sun of Tenerife, just in an open storage area, and still it refused to die. Attacked by vandals, nearly scrapped because only saved by the destination blind. And it was, saved from no bids on an auction site because nobody knew the true provenance of the bus. I'm so happy and privileged to have played a part in bringing such an iconic, beautiful vehicle, back to life and back to the fans. It's going to be amazing. I'm so looking forward to meeting the fans at the events, because all I'm meeting these days are, bus restorers and mechanics and welders and body people and those guys. They are so talented, those guys. They know, and the man that it's with right now, we've just left Devon on the 5th of July. We were in Devon at Chepstow Classic Buses, and David Hoare went to rescue the bus for me after I bought it, because it was out the back of a stables in Oxfordshire, all left on its own. And David went, and he had to actually bring 4 wheels with him to get the bus up off the flat tires. So he bought 4 slave wheels to get it on so that he could tow it. And then, as I say, she'd been attacked by vandals, and because it was left in this open area, and he got it back and got her running. And then they started the slow process of rebuilding it, checking everything out. He said, Tom, the gods are smiling on you, he said, because the chassis is good. There's no sagging on the body. The brakes work. The engine is good after all these years. He said, you've been lucky. And I said, well, you've got to put it out there to get the luck. You have to, you got to buy your chips and chuck them on the table for the luck to have. But I think luck is created. And I think that we put ourselves in the position where we could, create this luck. So then it was moved down to Devon. So hoisted up again, and then banged down another 200 miles down the road to the yard where it's just left, and they rebuilt the whole back end. The platform was completely gone. The staircase was gone. The whole back end was rotten. So all the panels had to come up. Well, the panels were falling off because the wood was rotten. So that's all been rebuilt now. We have a new platform. We've got a new staircase, got a new back end. And then she was ready to go to 300 miles up the road again to Essex, to the next workshop. And that's where she is now. And the man who owns this workshop, he is something else. And so when I sent him the email, we'll go back just a little fraction, because when I started the Facebook, I was astonished at the number of people that found me and wanted to become friends with me all of a sudden. And then they wanted to once I started the Facebook page, they wanted to come on and like the page and become friends of the page and all the rest of it. So now we have 3,500 followers of the bus on Facebook, which is awesome. And I've got 5,000 Facebook friends. Well, the bus has, because it's not me. It's because I own the bus. So that's wonderful, and they all like it and they follow the stories. So I was contacted one day by this guy, and he just wrote this little message, and he said, "When am I going to work on my bus again?" And I said, did you work on the bus? He said, "I looked after that bus," he said, "for 12 years, body and paint, for 12 years, from 82 to 81 to when it went down to Tenerife." And he said, "I was the one who did the paintwork." He said that it got sold through Sotheby's with. So I said, "Oh, blimey." So I'm looking for another workshop. "Where are you?" He said, "I'm in Clacton." And I said, "Well, the bus used to go up and down the road, up and down the seafront of Clacton. It's a Clacton bus." He said, "I know." And I went, "Wow, this is synchronicity here. These things are coming together." I said, "Have you got a workshop?" He said, "No." And I went, "Oh, okay." Fly in the ointment. So I used to have garages. I know how to talk to garage people. So let's see if I can find a workshop in Clacton for my new friend, Steve. And so anyway, I had a ring round, got the yellow pages, had a ring round, and I said, "Coachworks, looking for Coachworks." And I found this guy, and he said, he said, "You need to speak to Brad." He said, "At such and such a company." Not allowed to say who they are right now, because we don't want souvenir hunters and rubberneckers coming down, stopping the work. So he said, "You need to speak to Brad at so-and-so company." So I said, "Okay." So I've looked them up. Fantastic. They've got a huge workshop, massive oven to bake on the paint and all the rest of it. And they do big trucks and buses and RVs and all this kind of business. So I'd already done a presentation email to say about what the bus was, the history of the bus, the meaning of the bus, and all the rest of it. And so at 8:30 one morning, I sent an email out to this company and addressing it to Brad. The phone rang. That was at 8:30. My phone rang at 9 o'clock. And this voice said, "Is that Tom?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Hi, this is Brad." I said, "Oh, hello, Brad. Good morning. I've just sent you an email." He said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "I have to do this bus." He said, "My mum is the world's biggest Beatles fan." He said, "We have to paint this bus." So I said, "Oh, right, okay, well, let's have a chat then." And so we started having a chat. Oh, wow. I mean, it's like the guy at Ipswich, Suffolk campus, I was on the phone to him for about an hour and a half, going through all the history and the stories of the bus, all the stuff that I didn't put in the email, and funny stories and stuff that's happened, and the spirit of everything that's contained. George Martin, when I was at Abbey Road last week, there's a quote on the wall from George Martin that reads something like, if like me, you believe that a building can house and contain the spirit of the people who have been there, then you will understand the vibe at Abbey Road. And that's exactly the same. You transfer that to the bus, and that's the vibe I have with the bus. I see Paul McCartney standing on the platform with Linda. I see Denny Lane and all the guys lying around on the mattresses upstairs. I see Stella inside the playpen. I see Linda and Paul sitting in the front seat up the top deck, going forward on the way to Helsinki. I see Paul holding Stella in his arms while he's sitting in the front seat on the passenger side, facing backwards. And that's what I see. That and the spirit, those spirits are all over that bus. So
I totally agree.
So our man who's got the bus now, he just adored. He was beaming when we arrived with the bus. He was just beaming. Is that from ear to ear? And he's a fabulous body man. Absolutely great. I said, "Does this bus present any challenges to you?" He said, "Tom," he said, "that's a straight bus." He said, "There's an odd curve." He said, "But it's a straight bus." But he said, "We fix and we repair modern trucks," he said, "that are covered, got loads and loads of curves on them." He said, your bus is a straight bus. He said, there's no challenges on that bus at all. We will make a beautiful job of it.
Now, Tom, let me tell you, the last question I'm going to ask you before we do a wrap on the hour, we went an hour. It was that fascinating, the interview. Now, let's move into the future. The bus is finished. Paul McCartney gets to see the bus. If Paul McCartney was going to put his signature anywhere on the bus, where would you like him to put the signature?
I think I'd like him to autograph the seat that he always used to sit in, which is on the front passenger side next to the window. And I've got photographs of Paul sitting there. So I'd like him to autograph the actual seat that, because we've got the seats, which are identical to the seats that were on the bus. And actually, Nathan, the seats actually came out of a coach. I thought, because Tom Salter in his interview, he said we put aircraft seats in it, and I went chasing aircraft seats. So I'm not bad on Facebook. So I contacted, and I found the photos of the seats, and I contacted 80 aircraft museums around the world to try and find. I thought, well, right, if this came out of an aircraft in 1972, this would probably be a 1962, 1950s aircraft that these seats come out of. So I contacted all these bus museums, all these aircraft museums all around the world, even Jamaica Air, and Nigeria Air Museum. And I contacted them and I sent them the photos, all the rest of it, until somebody came back from the and said, Tom, these are not aircraft seats, they're coach seats. Oh. They came out of a Plaxton, a Premier executive coach, the same as the 1970 England World Cup team coach. The identical seats, and they're called E-type seats, a bit like the Jag, but they're called E-type lozenge seats from 1968 onwards. I think they started putting them into coaches. So, and that's how that's how I found what they were. And we have had a donation of 6 pairs of these seats, a donation. They are sitting in a warehouse right now, just off the M3. I beg your pardon, the M4, outside London, and they've been donated to the bus by an amazing man. One of the bus's guardian angels. I've started from the very beginning. I started the restoration, Paul McCartney's 1972 Wings Tour Bus restoration Roll of Honor, and on that Roll of Honor will be the names of all the people who have actually worked on the bus and contributed to the bus. That's great. And so they're going to be on, and the #1 name on there is the name of a wonderful man called William Staniforth. And before I even bought the bus, I'd done the research on the type of bus it was, and I found the groups on Facebook. Facebook is amazing. And I found the groups on Facebook to Bristol KSW, so the Bristol K, JK and L group, and I contacted them, and I saw, and all the groups that I was on for the Bristol buses, one name kept coming up, one name kept appearing, William Staniforth. He was everywhere. And I thought, right, I know the man. I've got to speak to William. So I tracked him down, got his phone number, and I rang him up, and I said, hello, is that William? He said, yes. I said, hello, William, my name is Tom, and I think I might be about to buy a 1953 Bristol KSW. And as soon as I said W, he said, is that the McCartney bus?
Oh.
And I said, yes. He said, oh, congratulations, buy it. And I went, oh, well, hang on now, because I need people to look after it, maybe restore it and all the rest of it. And he said, David Hoare at Chepstow Classic Buses. David will sort out everything for you. He said, now I can talk to him. I will chat with him, and we'll sort out the parts. We'll sort out all the bits and sort out everything that you need. And it was David who went and picked the bus up after I bought it, looked after it, got it running, rebuilt the back end, and made it ready for us to take it up the road up to Clacton in Essex, and for the next stage of all the work to be done. So huge, big mention to #1 guardian angel, William Staniforth, and #2 guardian angel, David Hoare of Chepstow Classic Buses. And then we've got, and he said, I said to him, I said, well, look, I used to work on motors, so I want to do some work on it myself. And he said, well, he said, go down to Winkley. He said, down to the boys down in Devon. And I said, who's down there? So he said, well, he said, you got Jim and you got Pete. So I said, tell me about Jim and Pete, because I used to work in garages, so they're all characters. So he said, right. He says, well, he said, Jim, he's the bodywork man. So I said, okay. And Pete, he said, Pete, this is how he described him. He said, Pete gets them going and he keeps them going. So I said, oh, that's lovely. I love that. So we're driving down to meet the boys, and we're in the car, and, you know, it's like a 5-hour journey from where I was living down to the bus. So on the way, I'm thinking this up, and I'm thinking, I've got to put handles on these guys. I've got to give them a nickname, something, something, something. So Jim was easy because he's a body man. So I called him Jim Bod, right? So that was good, and he liked that, right? Pete, now he was a bit more of a challenge, right? He gets them going, and he keeps them going. He gets them going, and he keeps them going. Something beginning with P, gets them going and keeps them going. I know, Propulsion Pete. He gets them going and he keeps them. Well, he loved it. He loved it. So Propulsion Pete Hearn and Jim Bod Shoreland, they're two big guys that did all of the work on the bus when it was down in Winkley in Devon, and rebuilt the back end, the platform, and all that lovely stuff that's been done. Beautiful work. Absolutely. Top guys, and really lovely to work with. And I never did do any work with them. I just came down, looked around, saw, oh, you don't need me, lads. I'd only be in the way. And so it was a thrill. But it was sad to leave. It was sad to leave Devon. But to bring the bus back to its home turf of Essex, and particularly in Clacton, that's a dream come true. And my friend Steve, who worked on the bus for 12 years, I said to him, I need you to go and check out this workshop, see if it's okay. And he came back to me really excited. He said, it's 10 minutes from my house. And he went, well done. He said, how did you find that? And I said, well, just research. So he's a class act. I mean, he's a ace body and paint man, and he's sprayed racing cars even. And him and Brad they've bruved up big time. They have totally bruved up big time. So Steve was there the other day working on the bus, and he sent me some photos of the stuff that he's been doing. And Brad is there in and out, and we're all chasing around looking for bits, and the boys are there working on it. So it's like a quick fitter ad. You know, there's all these guys running around in overalls, and they're all doing all different jobs. And the bus is just, when you imagine the bus on its own, lonely, in an open storage area, nobody taking any notes. In fact, vandalizing it for like 17 years, 19 years. And then all of a sudden, here it is, the center of attention, back where it belongs, get back to where you once belonged. Thank you, Paul. And here's where she is. She's amongst the fans already, and she's being looked after by the son of the lady, the biggest Beatles fan in the world. I'm told. So I'm looking forward to meeting Mum. And we're gonna. And I started the club, the 1972 Wings Tour Bus Supporters Club, and we're called the Busketeers. So after the Musketeers, one for all and all for the bus. That's and great. We have badges, and let me see if I can find one, guys. Bear with me a sec.
Yep, fine. This is fascinating. Well, the Paul McCartney and Wings 1972 bus is being restored as we speak, and we all can't wait to see it finished. You agree?
Here you go, guys. Here's a bronze one. I'm waiting on the new delivery of all the new ones, because the first lot have already sold out. They've gone. But you know the lovely symbol that you did earlier, Nathan?
Yes.
The wings. There you go. Look at that. That's beautiful, that.
That's great.
That's a Busketeer badge. Let me see if I can get it.
Yeah, that's great.
There you go. And it says Wings, and it says Busketeer. It says Busketeer Wings, and it's 1972 Wings Tour and WNO 481. And yeah, so it's very, very cool. This is a bronze one.
Beautiful right there.
Bronze one.
Bring it in. Bring it in. I'll tell you when to stop. Stop right there. Just a little bit back.
That's very cool.
That's fine. That looks great. Anyway, all I want to say is everyone keep in touch. Keep following the bus. And we thank you so much, Tom, for this riveting interview. And as I said to you, it's all in front of you now. The world awaits. The Paul McCartney Wings 1972 tour bus. I'm getting tongue-tied. I'm so excited about it. The one that did the European tour. Let me tell you, it's all happening. And hopefully, I'm sure it'll be done by Paul's birthday at the latest. Obviously, we're aiming for that, yeah?
Well, most definitely. It's got to be ready for the 18th of June, but I'm hoping it's going to be ready maybe even by Christmas. And say there's enough guys jumping all over it, and they're all mad about it, which is great. So they all qualify for their names appearing on the Restoration Roll of Honor, and also to get Busketeer badges. So,
well, I just want to say, Tom Jennings, thank you so much for being with us. This is going out to the world, to all the Wings fans, to all the Beatle fans. Thanks again, and we'll keep you in touch with what's happening with the bus.
I love it.
Everyone stay great, stay safe, and we love you out there.
Good one, Nathan. Thank you for that, Nathan.